And welcome into the Cam Rogers Show. Happy Labor Day out there. It is September 3rd, 2018. I am Cam Rogers. We got a new look on the program kicking off the week here, folks. Hope your September is going well. Hit me up on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99. A lot to break down throughout the program here, folks. I am laying down my predictions for the NFL season, regular season, and playoffs included. But first, the latest NFL headlines out there, and let's start things off with Antonio Gates. He's back in LA, folks. He has reached an agreement with the Los Angeles Chargers, and this guy's getting up there, entering his 16th season in the National Football League. So, grizzled veteran, if you will. Now, it's interesting because the Chargers originally said, yeah, Antonio, we're not bringing you back. And then the whole, Hunter Henry thing happened. He got hurt. Now he's going on the PUP list. So there's some optimism, I guess, from the Chargers leadership that maybe Hunter Henry will be healthy at some point. But you would assume that he's out for the year. So they bring in Antonio Gates, obviously a security blanket there for Phillip Rivers. He ranks 6th all-time in 114 touchdowns, 20th in total receptions, and 30th in receiving yards. Played in 8 consecutive Pro Bowl campaigns from 2004 to 2011. First team All-Pro in 3 straight seasons from 2004 to 2006. So, obviously, from a fantasy football perspective, an interesting name to watch out for. You know, the tight end position is very shallow, shall we say. And for a guy with career stats like these, pretty compelling stuff here for Antonio Gates. So if you're looking for a tight end out there, if you had Hunter Henry and now you're left with nothing, maybe you go ahead and grab Antonio Gates to help yourself out a little bit. Now, in terms of the Chargers and their season prognostications here, look, this is a team that is a sexy NFL playoff pick, and I think sometimes that can be kind of dangerous out there, i.e. the Tampa Bay Buccaneers of 2017. So for everybody thinking about the Chargers right now, may not want to jump on the bandwagon too hard because sometimes when a team is hyped up, they don't do as well. Tampa Bay, the Philadelphia Eagles dream team, the list goes on there. But hey, good news for Antonio Gates. He's still playing football, the future Hall of Fame tight end. All right, next up here on the list, Khalil Mack got paid. Big time. It's a record-setting 6-year, $141 million contract extension, hours after the Oakland Raiders shipped him to the Windy City via that trade there. Oh, Oakland, Oakland, Oakland. See, I have been on the Oakland Raiders bandwagon for the last few months, saying that they will win the AFC West. GM Reggie McKenzie and the Raiders leadership totally botched this entire situation. You pay Khalil Mack because Khalil Mack is a cornerstone player, a franchise guy. And now, with Chicago being paid the most on a yearly basis among all defenders in the NFL, surpassing the recently re-signed Aaron Donald, and then, of course, Von Miller at $19.01 million, and Ziggy Ansah there, who is on the franchise tag at $17.14 million for the 2018 campaign. But if you are an Oakland Raiders fan, how are you happy about this trade here between the Raiders and the Bears, and also the fact that there was no dialogue at all between the Raiders and Khalil Mack? And you also have to wonder, and here's the full-on details there with Khalil Mack and the trade between the Raiders and the Bears. If you're John Gruden and you see this happen, I mean, you got to think to yourself, is John Gruden trying to be the owner of the Oakland Raiders right now? Is he running the show to the extent that let's trade Khalil Mack and let's get him out of here? And oh, by the way, throw Reggie McKenzie under the bus when Gruden was asked about, were you part of the Bears getting a second-round pick back thing? And Gruden was like, well, no, I wasn't a part of that at all. Okay, so you're throwing Reggie McKenzie under the bus. The Oakland Raiders are no longer a playoff contender in my eyes. They totally messed this up. Meanwhile, for Chicago, pretty darn compelling defense, guys. Roquan Smith, Leonard Floyd. You got Fuller in the secondary. Really solid safety duo there with Amos and Jackson as well. The Bears could be a year away from being a legit playoff contender. Meanwhile, the Oakland Raiders, I don't know if they finished second in the AFC West. So are they playoff contenders? Type away in comments. I'm on YouTube Live as well as Facebook Live. Let me know what you think. Y for yes, N for no. Uncle Luke in the comments section there with the Tar Heels logo on YouTube Live. Thank you for watching. Typing away with N. And then we got Michael asking, Cam, was the Raiders defense ever that good with Mack? Well, that's an interesting question, Michael. And the answer is, no, they weren't good, but now they're even worse. And Michael, here's the thing. You draft a guy in Khalil Mack to have him for 10 to 15 years, right? Why rent this guy? Because that's what it was. It was a draft and then a rental for 4 years. And so that's not really how you want to lead an NFL team. Of course, you want to build an NFL team, and it takes time via the draft and all that. But when you hit on a guy like Khalil Mack, especially when you look at the Raiders' draft history and the fact that they have not hit very often, you pay the man. I don't care how much he demands. Because the reality is, every team out there is going to have to eventually pay somebody a large sum of money. The Baltimore Ravens did it with Joe Flacco. The Atlanta Falcons recently did it with Matt Ryan. The Green Bay Packers did it with Aaron Rodgers. Yes, I'm rattling off quarterbacks here, but hey, Denver had to do it with Von Miller. You saw the LA Rams. They had to do it with Aaron Donald as well. Eventually, supply and demand happens, and your demand for a cornerstone player like Khalil Mack should be through the roof if you are the Oakland Raiders, and I think they messed that up. So let me know what you guys think in the comments section about this whole Khalil Mack situation, but certainly a big-time story that came out of the weekend, Mack going to the Chicago Bears. Now Chicago, I think, will be a pretty darn pesky team in 2018. I'll get to my NFL playoff predictions later in the show, but I'll say this, the NFC North, pretty darn competitive, folks. So we'll see what happens with the Oakland Raiders. Michael again saying the offense will carry the defense. Well, you better hope so. Amari Cooper, a lot of pressure on him. Jordy Nelson, we'll see how he does. And then the offensive line and the run game for Oakland really has to show out this season. All right, next up here on the list, Jerick McKinnon out for the year, most likely, reportedly an ACL tear for him. Really tough situation. McKinnon was slated to be the guy in the run game for the San Francisco 49ers. In fact, somebody came at me in the YouTube comments recently. Jerick McKinnon isn't a three-down back. Yeah, he is. He was getting paid as one, at least. $30 million. Are you kidding me? This guy better have been a three-down back for the 49ers this season, and obviously we won't see him on the field, which means Matt Breida, Alfred Morris, Raheem Mostert, more of a special teams guy, will have to carry the load here for the San Francisco 49ers. And does this have effect on me in terms of my predictions for the 49ers in 2018? Absolutely, because I saw Jerick McKinnon as a crucial piece to this offensive puzzle for San Francisco. Yeah, they get Jimmy Garoppolo, but he's still relatively unproven. 7 career starts on his hands. Yeah, they have Marquise Goodwin, Pierre Garçon. I like them a lot. Trent Taylor, Dante Pettis, the list goes on. But if the 49ers don't have an effective run game, sorry, you're not going to be successful in your division. You're talking about good front sevens out there in the NFC West. Arizona, Seattle, LA, of course. They have a great secondary, too, with Aqib Talib and Marcus Peters and LaMarcus Joyner and John Johnson there, the second-year safety. San Francisco needs a run game. Now, Alfred Morris there, sneaky fantasy football waiver wire pickup, by the way, and he has a history of being a successful running back in the Kyle Shanahan scheme. Remember Alfred Morris with Washington? That's when Kyle Shanahan was on the Redskins staff, and Morris had a couple of really good seasons there. So maybe not doom and gloom if you're a 49ers fan out there, but I will say losing Jerick McKinnon, really brutal from a monetary perspective with the amount of money that John Lynch is paying this guy. And from an ability standpoint, you lose a pretty darn good running back, a guy I thought was going to blend really well in that Kyle Shanahan zone blocking scheme. Saw my guy Isaac in the comments section on YouTube Live. Any thoughts on Colin Kaepernick? Well, Colin Kaepernick has an ongoing collusion case against the NFL. That eventually will go to a hearing. Whether or not he returns to the NFL remains to be seen. If I had to lay down a prediction, I don't think he actually comes back to the league. Cam Rogers coming at you. It's the Cam Rogers Show. Hit me up on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99. I'm on Facebook Live as well as YouTube Live. Be sure to say hello. And we are presented by AutoList. If you're looking for a new or used car out there and you're tired of browsing a million sites, go to Autolist.com to browse the largest source of inventory on the web, or download their top-rated mobile app for iPhone or Android today. Going through all the latest NFL headlines, later up in the show, I will go through my NFL predictions, including the regular season and the playoffs, and then Super Bowl 53, who wins the Lombardi Trophy. I'll get there. So just talked about Jerick McKinnon. How about this? We got a game this week. Thursday night, Atlanta and Philadelphia. Carson Wentz not going to be starting at the quarterback position. It'll be this guy, Nick Foles, according to NFL Network's Ian Rappaport. Now, Wentz has done, quote, fantastic in his rehab from knee surgery, but starting Foles is, quote, a long-term decision meant to benefit Carson Wentz. Meanwhile, Nick Foles has received the majority of first-team repetitions in training camp and practice here. So, all told, really smart decision here for the Philadelphia Eagles. One game or 10 to 15 years. That's essentially how Philadelphia is looking at it. And by the way, Doug Peterson recently channeling his inner Nick Saban, getting all mad at the media about getting questions at the quarterback position. Quick tangent. Coaches out there, if you're getting questions from the media, would you stop being jerks? Like, just answer the dang questions and move on. If you answer the questions, then they'll stop. It's one of those deals. But if you just deflect and deflect and deflect, the questions keep coming. All right, so in terms of Nick Foles here, look, Super Bowl MVP from Super Bowl 52 against the New England Patriots, and probably the most elite backup quarterback in the NFL. It's all relative, right? He's probably the best backup that we have in the league here. Foles completed 72.6% of his throws for 971 yards and 6 touchdowns in that playoff run. 3 games, by the way, for Philadelphia. Are they going to repeat, though, as Super Bowl champions? Type away, 1 for yes, 2 for no. Be sure to weigh in here. I got Jacob saying 1. We've got Raven Nation tuning in on Facebook Live, by the way. My friends over there at Charm City. Go Ravens, of course. I don't think they do. It is so hard to repeat in the salary cap era. We haven't seen a repeat champion since the New England Patriots in the early 2000s, when Ja Rule and Fat Joe were probably the #1 songs on the top 40 list. You got to go way back, you know what I mean? So I'll talk about Philadelphia later in my playoff predictions and regular season predictions here, but it's just a tough road from a mental standpoint. Fighting off the Super Bowl hangover, fighting off the complacency, and I think the Eagles could feel the biggest hangover of all because they just recently had their first championship in franchise history. So it's tough to kind of bounce back and get hungry yet again. Now, I will say Carson Wentz was not a part of that Super Bowl, at least in the playoff run, so maybe he has that hunger that can fuel the rest of the Eagles team there. All right, next up here. Could a Seahawks trade involving Earl Thomas go down? Here's what I know. For now, it's not in the plans for Seattle, but that could change. Everyone has a price, folks. Just ask the Oakland Raiders. Now, Schefter noted the Seahawks are adamant that they will not give the 6-time Pro Bowler away. Thomas has 1 year left on his contract, being paid $8.5 million here in 2018. And by the way, the Seahawks don't actually plan on extending Earl Thomas prior to the regular season or during the regular season. That's very telling because you may recall Thomas told Jane Slater of NFL Network during the Pro Bowl that he won't return to the football field until a new contract is divvied out. We don't have a new contract, which means we are in peak tug of war now between Earl Thomas and GM John Schneider of the Seattle Seahawks. Who budges first? Now, Earl Thomas is the one that's going to be losing money if he does choose to sit out here. It won't be John Schneider in a way. He'll lose the ability on the field, of course, but there's a part of me that feels like the Seattle leadership out there knows they're in a bit of a reset in the NFC West. I think that they've lost enough talent at this point. I don't even know who's going to start at cornerback right now outside of Coleman, because they recently released Byron Maxwell. So who's your CB number 2, if you will? So Seattle's in a bit of a reset in a way, and I think the Cowboys, among other teams, have shown interest in Thomas, but the problem is Dallas has offered a second-round pick, but Seattle wants more than that in terms of compensation. So the question becomes, who steps up to the plate in terms of, I guess, making this deal happen? Dallas, i.e. offering a first-round pick, or Seattle lowering its asking price? Who steps up first? We've seen some injuries here at the Dallas secondary already with Woods and Frazier. Maybe Dallas steps up to the plate and says, okay, here's a first-round pick. The problem is, if you give a first-round pick away to the Seattle Seahawks, it's not just that. You got to pay this guy in Earl Thomas. So that's a big chunk of your salary cap, plus a first-round pick going to Seattle. It's a lot of compensation here for Earl Thomas. One of the premier safeties in the National Football League, I get it. But I also like Dallas' secondary. I know there's some questions about the depth at safety, but I like Jones a lot. I like Xavier Woods a lot. I like Awuzie a lot as well. These are young players that I think Dallas should watch develop in that secondary and then see what happens. Now, if a trade goes down, I actually think it will happen during the trade deadline. All right, so during the regular season, right before the deadline, Dallas maybe realizes, okay, we need help in the secondary and we're in the playoff hunt. And then Seattle's like, well, we're out of it. Let's get Earl Thomas out of here and at least get some sort of compensation because we know he's leaving in free agency next year. It's the Kawhi Leonard argument. San Antonio knew that Kawhi was going to leave, so hey, let's trade him and get some compensation. Seattle may know that Earl Thomas wants to leave. Let's trade him to Dallas because we know that we won't get any compensation when he walks into free agency. All right, so that's the latest there with Earl Thomas. No dialogue between the Seattle leadership and ET as we stand. Next up here, Paxton Lynch. Poor Paxton Lynch. You see, I have been really biased as an NFL analyst in favor of big, tall, lean, strong-arm quarterbacks, and they have not worked out. Paxton Lynch, Josh Freeman, remember him? Mike Glennon? I was high on these guys, and they have just not worked out. So Denver has released Paxton Lynch, currently on waivers. Nobody has picked him up, and Denver will remain on the hook with Paxton Lynch in his contract for $1.9 million in guaranteed base salary over the next 2 years. Again, unless Paxton Lynch is picked up off waivers, and I don't really think that they'll do that. I see Isaac here in the comments section saying the Jags should sign Paxton Lynch. I don't think so. Blake Bortles is okay, but he's better than Paxton Lynch, and I do like the depth that they have at quarterback as we stand right now. I don't think Paxton Lynch makes all that much sense for Jacksonville, but hey, I could see it happening. I also want to throw in a little Dallas Cowboys note here. Maybe the Cowboys pick him up. Remember when Dallas really wanted Paxton Lynch and then they settled for Dak Prescott? Pretty sure Cowboys fans out there are thanking their lucky stars that Dak Prescott is their quarterback and not Paxton Lynch. By the way, Kevin Hogan has been picked up by the Denver Broncos, former Washington Redskin. All right, we're talking busts at this point with Paxton Lynch. Who's the biggest quarterback bust in NFL history? Maybe you go recency and say somebody like Paxton Lynch. Maybe you go with the classic names such as Jamarcus Russell and Ryan Leaf and all of these guys. Jacob in comments saying Paxton to the Jets, also saying that Geno Smith is the biggest bust in NFL history. Mark Sanchez, Jamarcus Russell, seen some other names. Oh, there's Ryan Leaf. There he is from Carl on YouTube Live. So keep hitting me up with your thoughts here, folks. I got the broadcast right here on my phone as well as my laptop here. So keep hitting me up. Rex Grossman. Hey, Kevin, Rex Grossman went to a Super Bowl. So can he be a bust? I don't know. Hey, I want to give a shout out to Mizzen and Maine, and these are comfortable as F shirts, folks. If you sweat a lot, these shirts are for you. I am big into antiperspirant deodorant as well as sweat wicking technology. Mizzen and Maine provides that. Comfortable.af is indeed the website. You're watching the Cam Rogers Show here, presented by Autolist. I am Cam Rogers. Let's talk about the Chicago Bears. Are they going to the Super Bowl? Well, if you ask Kanye West, they are. So he's buying into this whole Chicago hype here, now recently acquiring Khalil Mack and a compelling offense with a pretty darn good head coach and Matt Nagy. Allen Robinson is there. Taylor Gabriel is there. Trey Burton they bring in at tight end. They have Anthony Miller, the rookie wide receiver, as well. Jordan Howard, Tariq Cohen. I've said it once and I'll say it again. The Chicago Bears have a compelling argument that they could be a sneaky playoff team. They're not winning the North this year because the Minnesota Vikings are in that division. And by the way, Kanye West is from Chicago, so there could be some bias involved here. But I will say he's onto something. Maybe a couple of years early in terms of Chicago being a Super Bowl contender, but he's on the right track because I think Chicago has a very good defense. They could be top 10 this year, to be honest with you, and then an interesting offense with the weapons that they have there on that side of the ball. So, hey, Kanye, maybe a little foreshadowing there for Chicago. By the way, my guy on Facebook Live, Marcus Williams, saying Joe Flacco is a quarterback bust. I know he's trying to trigger me right now. Joe Flacco is my guy, my quarterback, a Super Bowl MVP, and going to take the Ravens to the playoffs this year. Wink, wink. A little foreshadowing there for my playoff predictions. So the Bills recently got A.J. McCarron, and then they traded him away to the Oakland Raiders. I don't know what John Gruden is doing. And by the way, John Gruden's old partner, Sean McDonough, from the Monday Night Football broadcast booth, said last night during the LSU-Miami game that he doesn't know what John Gruden is doing. Nobody knows, except Gruden apparently. But the Raiders now have A.J. McCarron as a backup behind Derek Carr. I actually like this move. I'm a big McCarron fan, to be honest with you. Not a Connor Cook guy, not an E.J. Manuel guy. Those guys are both gone. So McCarron's behind Derek Carr. I was actually excited for Buffalo in a way. And it's hard to get excited for Buffalo because it's, well, Buffalo. But I thought A.J. McCarron was going to be the starter for this team and eventually become a legit playoff quarterback. Maybe not this year, but the next or the year after that, because Buffalo's building something good over there on that defensive side. And yeah, they got some turnover on the offensive line. It'll take some time. But I thought McCarron was their guy. Eventually, Josh Allen would come into the fray, of course. But interesting move here with the Bills. By the way, we'll talk about it later. The Bills have named a starting quarterback. Those are the details. So the Bills get a fifth-round pick from the Raiders. The Raiders, of course, get A.J. McCarron to back up Derek Carr. So we'll see what happens going forward there. All right, let's talk about the national anthem debate because the question is, Thursday night, when Philadelphia and Atlanta do battle, who's kneeling, who's standing, who's staying in the locker room? I'll tell you this, we're not going to have a new policy by the time Week 1 comes around. That, according to a report from ESPN.com. Talks are ongoing between the NFL and NFLPA right now, and no new policy is expected in time for Week 1, which means the 2017 national anthem policy will be in place, which is players are encouraged to stand for the national anthem but not required to stand. So we could have a mess on our hands here, folks, because it sounds like the NFLPA and the NFL are using Week 1 as an experiment, if you will. And what I mean by that is they want to see whether players kneel, collectively stand, what the owners do, what President Donald Trump does on Twitter. And then I think the NFL and NFLPA, after that, seeing what happens in Week 1 and all, come to some sort of solution off of that. All right? So you got to wonder, will the president tweet? Will players kneel? Will players just raise their fists? Or will they stay in the locker room? Could it be a blend of everything? It's very interesting to see. So which side are you on? Type away. K for kneel, S for stand. We've got Wayne on Facebook Live going with stand, Yuri on YouTube Live saying S, and some K's being thrown in there as well. So, hey, I'll monitor the story as we go forward, folks, but it's going to be a part of the headlines on Friday morning. Who's standing, who's kneeling, who's staying in the locker room, and will the president chime in on it? All right, let's talk Dez Bryant. Michael Irvin recently chiming in about the free agent wide receiver, saying that Dez needs to find a team now. Now, Irvin has been vocal about the Dez Bryant sweepstakes lately, and it sure does appear that Dez Bryant is in no hurry to join an NFL team. We know that the Baltimore Ravens, still salty about that, by the way, offered him a 3-year deal. We know the Cleveland Browns offered Dez Bryant just a shade under $5 million for the 2018 season. So what does Dez Bryant want? Well, Dez Bryant doesn't want money. That is clear, or at least from the immediate perspective. And what I mean by that is he wants a 1-year prove-it deal with a contender and then eventually cash out with a team that has the salary cap space to do it. Looking at you, Texans, Colts, 49ers, Jets. These teams have a lot of salary cap space. So my 5 best fits for Dez Bryant, I still got the New England Patriots at number 1. I do. Pittsburgh at 2, Houston 3, Arizona 4, dark horse team out there. And I put the Browns at 5 because maybe there's a shot that Dez Bryant goes back to Cleveland and accepts that offer. I see Isaac asking about the Buffalo Bills. Not a bad team to watch out for either. Look at the Buffalo Bills wide receiver depth chart. Kelvin Benjamin, Zay Jones, and that's really it, to be honest with you. So the question is, does Dez Bryant want to play for Buffalo with a starting quarterback named Nathan Peterman? That's the big question. I don't think he wants to go there, Isaac. I think Buffalo would be interested in bringing him in, but I don't think Dez wants to go play in upstate New York. Again, Dez Bryant to the New England Patriots makes the most sense in the world. I have been saying this for months. If you're New England, what is there to lose? Bring the guy in for a workout. Now, I will admit for the first time on this program, I'm starting to get a little worried about my New England Patriot Dez Bryant prediction because, as Harris Rubenstein, my producer, is sighing relief here, the Patriots haven't brought this guy in for a workout. And I'm not sure why, because it makes so much sense for New England to do this. And I hate the argument, oh, the Patriots' offense is based on timing and all that. Okay, but if you're New England, you are desperate. You are desperate for ability on the outside, especially in those first 4 games. And yeah, maybe Dez Bryant isn't the best fit from a offensive perspective and a timing perspective. Who cares? The guy catches the ball in the red zone. Do you need timing for catches in the red zone per se as much as moving the chains on a 3rd and 3 in between the 20s? No. Dez Bryant can be that basketball, backyard, schoolyard wide receiver in the red zone. Brady throws it up and Dez gets it. It's as simple as that. And he's going to get one-on-one coverage in the red zone too with freaking Rob Gronkowski here getting bracket coverage from a safety and a linebacker or whatever the case may be. If you ask Jalen Ramsey, apparently you're supposed to put a cornerback on Rob Gronkowski and then you just stop him. So where we stand with Dez Bryant is this. He has turned down 2 contracts so far. He's focusing on himself, whatever that means, and he's taking his time. He recently took to Twitter to say that he may not sign until the regular season. What that really means is he's waiting for a contending team to give him a ring and say, hey, Dez, we realize we need you. Come on in. And so I think the New England Patriots and GM Nick Caserio will be that team/person to do that. It's just, you look at New England's offense, and yeah, they could be in fine shape because it's Tom Brady and he can navigate an offense like the best of them out there. But still, this whole notion that Dez Bryant would be more of a locker room problem than anything else, I think is just absolutely false. If Dez Bryant goes to New England, he's not going to be the Dez Bryant of the Dallas Cowboys. He just won't, because he knows he can't get away with that stuff. Jason Garrett, Clapper man himself, is much different than Bill Belichick. From a coaching perspective, from a personality perspective, the list goes on. Bill Belichick will not allow the crap that Dez Bryant can do sometimes on the sidelines, which, again, is overblown in my eyes. And I think Dez would be fine with that, to be honest with you. By the way, Tom Brady, screams every time he runs out of the freaking locker room for the New England Patriots. Dez Bryant gets in a little shouting match on the sideline, and it's like the end of the world. Well, why aren't we calling out Tom Brady for being a wacko on the sidelines, too? He's yelled at players before. He's yelled at Josh McDaniels on the sideline. So this whole notion that, Dez is a distraction and all that, get out of here with that. Unbelievable. I'll be tracking the latest on Dez Bryant. You guys know where I stand. He's going to New England. You're watching the Cam Rogers Show, presented by AutoList. Are you looking for a new or used car out there and you're tired of browsing a million sites? Go to Autolist.com or download their top-rated mobile app for iPhone or Android today and browse the largest source of inventory on the web. Get it done today. All right, folks, we got 30 minutes left of the program here. Cam Rogers coming at you. Going through some more NFL headlines quickly here. RG3 will be the backup for the Baltimore Ravens, not Lamar Jackson. The Lamar Jackson hype came to a screeching halt during the preseason. If you watch the tape on this kid, he's not NFL ready. He's just not. So, first of all, I didn't like the pick when it happened, but I understand that eventually the Joe Flacco era will end, although it brings a tear to my eye to think about it. Joe is the quarterback of the Baltimore Ravens. Joe can take this team to the promised land yet again. RG3 is the veteran backup, and it's a nice little story here. Griffin finished the preseason 27 of 41, 243 yards, a couple touchdowns, an interception. Jackson was a little more inconsistent, 34 of 68, 408 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. Flacco is one of the more durable quarterbacks out there, has only missed 6 games since joining Baltimore via the draft in 2008. And, of course, those 6 games happened when Joe Flacco tore his ACL in 2015. Another thing that brings a tear to my eye. But I think this is the right move for Baltimore. There were some questions out there if the Ravens were going to keep 3 quarterbacks on the roster. Let's say, God forbid, Joe does go down and the Ravens decided to keep Lamar and Joe only on the roster. Then you usher in a totally raw prospect in Lamar Jackson onto the football field. Just not a good move there. So, good play here for the Ravens. RG3, good for him. Nice little story. NFL comeback happening pretty nicely. All right, let's talk about this final headline that came through minutes before coming on air. Nathan Peterman is starting for the Buffalo Bills, Mr. 5 interceptions himself. You may recall the highlights against the LA Chargers last year when Nathan Peterman was not very good. He looked like me out there when I played intramural quarterback at the University of Maryland with my stat line of 36 touchdowns to 32 interceptions. I'll never forget that. But Nathan Peterman will be starting against the Baltimore Ravens. So the Ravens have a nice little bye week, week 1, playing Nathan Peterman. We'll see how many picks Peterman throws at M&T Bank Stadium, and the Ravens will scamper ahead to a 1-0 record. Do I sound biased at all? No? Okay, good.